Welcome back to Friendly Geordies. Like and subscribe, where we are asking the most pressing question of our time. Is Peter Credlin the greatest journalist in the country? The answer is yes. Oh no, wait, sorry, I forgot about Paul Murray. What was I thinking? How could you forget Australian Zach Galifianakis? The answer is on 9 o'clock on Sky News, which I'm pretty sure only airs in Dubbo. Today we are joined, as usual, with the all-star cast of Corey Bernardi, Bronwyn Bishop, some guy that I assume was in middle management in BP, and of course, some other guy with an exceedingly large forehead. What does he have hiding in that massive brain? Let's find out.
The Labor Party's tied themselves to this crazy net zero emissions idea, which puts a clock. It puts a clock on everybody's job. It's just it's just TikTok for everybody who works in these industries, because they're saying by 2050 you've all got to be gone.
Yes. Well, those are all very fair dinkum points if you completely exclude reality, because, first off, 10 times more jobs of renewables than there are of fossil fuels. Second, it's not Labor that put a cap of 2050 on coal jobs. It was the world. As we all learned in 1975, the world is a little more powerful than the Labor Party. See my Why Gottfried was really dismissed video. Keeping in mind that by 2050 there will be no one to sell coal to, including the states. All of the states are going to be saying, I think I'll go with the energy that costs absolutely nothing to produce. Thank you, though. So if I was a worker and I was told facts, which are just kind of in a vacuum in Sky News, 250,000 jobs were lost under the Liberals during this COVID pandemic, which is the worst recession Australia's ever had, and it was deliberately induced. I've got a massive video coming out about that. But also, what is this strange talking point of, oh my God, 30 years? How are you supposed to transition out of an industry in 30 years? You know what was happening 30 years ago? People were walking around saying, hey, have you heard of this brand new show called Seinfeld? I'd buy a shirt, but it's not big enough yet to have merchandise. I do, however. Lane was right, available at friendlygeordies.com. Ooh, sneaky plug.
People can work that out. So until the Labor Party drops that kind of green left rubbish, they cannot represent...
They're so good at it! Sky News really should just be called The Same 3 Points. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every single segment. Labor and the Greens. Blah, 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 Greens. They're not the same party! You guys even go to great lengths to separate the Nationals and the Liberals, and the Nationals are just the Liberals in cowboy hats. They've always got to fight this two-front battle of the Greens on one side, the Liberals on the other, and then everybody sits around wondering, they can't get their act together. How come they haven't won power in like 30 years except for 3 nanoseconds?
I want to put to you, Bronwyn, and I'm not feeding your lines here, but are Labor just too close?
Even Bronwyn Bishop laughed at that. Having said all that though, I do like Corey Bernardi. He's got a haircut you can set your watch to. And I like the fact that he's got principles as well. He moved away from the Liberals pretty much because, what the hell, we've now got a Prime Minister that doesn't like the Queen on the $5 bill. Well, I'm not sticking around.
Or too controlled by the socialist left, that it's damaging their electoral prospects?
What do you think her response is going to be to this I'm not feeding you lines questions? I'm betting, yes I do, Bernardi.
Well, absolutely.
Well, we were close, weren't we?
They are the socialist left. They are totally socialist. And watching them implode at the moment is really saying they have had it. Now, internecine warfare is sometimes fun to watch. You know, they could even invite Turnbull to come and assist them. But he might be a bit left for them.
What is she talking about? That was just rambling. That was just wheeling on your grandma and filming her. You could have got the exact same in-depth political analysis from filming your grandma with your smartphone. It probably would have looked better than their camera anyway. And asking her, hey, what do you think about Bill Shorten? He's horrible, isn't he? Horrible. Yeah, do you have anything to back that up? Well, what more do you want? I said he's horrible. He's not as bad as Turnbull, I'll give you that. Anyway, let's move on to a man who I can only assume is named Bernard Punchington, short for BP.
These damaging climate wars are destroying our competitiveness, and they're making zero difference to the climate at all. And I don't want you to confuse good environmental policy with zero emissions, because they're completely at odds, Rex.
Yeah, look, I just look at this. This is nothing but a Labor stoush. That happens from time to time. I see it happening inside the coalition as well from time to time. My job as a crossbencher, as you well know, Corey, is to focus on what the government is doing.
Oh, no, wait, that's Fitzpatrick. No, I actually do like that guy. He puts through a lot of legislation that tries to, put some boundaries on corporations. So that guy's mad. The reason that I forgot what he looks like is because he's just been completely frozen out by the press. Sorry about that, Rexy. So insulting on 2 levels. You suck. Oh, no, wait, oh, no, you're mad. I forgot what your face looks like. But, look, I understand the reason that he's on Sky News. It's the same reason that Joel Fitzgibbon is on Sky News. He's trying to play an inside game because that guy is really important if the Senate is going to be remotely sane when there is going to be a total blue wave in the next election. As I frequently say on the Friendly Geordies podcast, check it out. Wouldn't be too bad though, would it? Because if there is a fully blue wave, then Australia gets to see exactly what the coalition is like, and I don't think they're going to like that. So maybe take one for the team, Rex. Or don't. You're also great, whatever.
For every election we've had since Rudd, where climate change has been front and centre, Labor's lost every time. Now, why?
Well, that's right.
Why on earth
Bronwyn.
would the current government think about lessening its position and wanting to go all green and having a chat with Biden and saying, "Oh yes, we'll look at 2050"? I mean, it's just a nonsense.
It's always the same point where you go to SBS, ABC, Sky News. I cannot believe that we as the media nexus in this country constantly trash on the Labor Party and yet they lose all the time. What's up with that? It's just the same points. They don't bring up anything. They kind of just sit around and have a chat. I bet you if you just pan to the side, this is being filmed at the Crow's Nest Hotel. This is just your nan at the pub with her 3 nephews. And don't you reckon, when your nephew grows up, he will look exactly like Corey Bernardi? I will say this about Sky News though, it's so much less infuriating than watching The Project or the 7:30 Report because they don't have this piousness about them that they're good people when they're factually some of the most evil people on earth. They actually do have that elephant charging through the Republican Congress in The Simpsons. We're just plain evil, and I can dig that.
Well, the Altona oil refinery in Melbourne is set to close, putting...
Why are they so obsessed with fossil fuels? Every breaking news story at the bottom is either Biden or some coal plant is going to close down. Emergency.
300 jobs at risk and sparking fresh concerns about Australia's domestic fuel security. Operator of the facility, ExxonMobil, says the Altona plant, which produces half of Victoria's refined fuel needs, will be converted to a fuel import terminal after the company deemed the refining operation was no longer economically viable. It's really interesting. This is a big story.
Yes, that is very interesting. A single plant. Go on for 9 minutes about it. Honestly, doesn't she look like the Scream if it came to life? And as if the Scream wouldn't have the exact same political views as she does. Sure, renewables look good on paper, but the technology isn't there!
90% now of our liquid fuels are imported. We just had a talk at the top of the show with Paul Kelly about the risks in our region, China muscling up to Taiwan. We're focused, honestly, so much in 2050 and environmental issues, and we're forgetting, I think, the here and now. And this isn't about fuel supply. This isn't about sort of green policy. This is about national security.
You see that? That is genius. That is how climate change should be explained to Australia as a national security threat. That's what Biden's picked up on, by the way. Common sense brigade, I think you know what to do. Scott Morrison says he's tough on boat people, but he wants Australia to remain the biggest exporter of gas and coal in the world. That means he's discreetly creating 200 million boat people. Scott Morrison, sinking their islands, sinking our dreams. We should have known when he f***ed off to Hawaii. That wasn't laziness, that was a reconnaissance mission.
And here's Anthony Albanese really saying the future for the gig economy lies in 1950s style labour regulation. It's just insane on its merits, which are non-existent. But what is it about Anthony Albanese that he chooses Brisbane to basically announce that he wants to lose the next election? Because There's no way somebody in the gig economy wants to be promised a 40-hour week with union protections. They want to invent the next Amazon. They want to invent the next Apple.
Yeah! Gollum's got a point, doesn't he? Sort of. We're always pushing this myth of the individual that, it was one individual that created the iPhone with the help of the US military-industrial complex that made all the components. They're always saying this of just this one sole entrepreneur made this huge global market shift. It had nothing to do with the marketers involved, nothing to do with all the eggheads sitting around tinkering with microchips, making them the size of like an amoeba. No. It was all Steve Jobs sitting there saying, what if we made, instead of the iPhone 1, the iPhone 2, Dare to Dream. Look, as you might know from my second channel, Jordan Shanks, huge fan of self-help, really do believe in the power of the individual, but I'll tell you what's much more impressive than just one with circular glasses working on a problem. 20,000 of them. And you know how you get that done? Through regulation and taxes. All the things that the government, that Sky is constantly pushing to keep in power, destroy. A really good example of that is when we paid for all of these eggheads to go through their entire degrees in science, that's from bachelor's to master's to a PhD in really specific things like net technology for prawns. Then all of them got their funding gutted by the Liberals, and so what did they do? They went to China, they went to the EU, they went to Tesla, and so all of these genius innovations in fields that are now going to be worth trillions of dollars are now going into the pockets of foreign countries that was set up by Labor, and that was one of the first things that the Liberals destroyed. And this guy's sitting there going, some guy in Brisbane called Raheem will make the next iPhone. No, all those guys that fucked off were going to make the next iPhone.
That Labor's wants to declare war on the casual side of the labour force, which is about 20% of workers, I understand, and that fraction hasn't really changed for a very long time for all the talk of casualisation and the gig economy. And the fact is that most casual workers actually enjoy their job or are happy with their conditions just as much as full-time workers. The Melbourne Institute has done lots of research on that. Certainly in my own experience, I can remember, I worked as a casual for Woolworths many years ago for 6 years, and I far preferred being a casual than being permanent part-time because of the 25% loading. So certainly for lots of people, especially when they're young, the option of casual work is a great one, and I really don't understand why Labor is so intent on crushing it, at least in a public policy sense. Of course, we know politically why, and that is because most casuals are not members of unions.
What has that got to do with Albos' speech? If you watched it, all he was talking about is giving workers' rights to casuals that are just flagrantly ignored by the Fair Work Commission. That's pretty much what his policy on that subject is. What is the fact that most of them are part of a union got anything to do with the fact that they wouldn't want workers' rights? Of course they would. You think that the other 80% of people that aren't in unions don't want their workers' rights? It's just they don't know that they were fought by that 20% that are in the unions. What a strange argument. I watched that Albos speech and I do understand their criticism of, they're just talking about the same things they did 100 years ago. I can imagine Anthony Albanese in some pub in Wales in like 1850 saying, you coal miners of South Wales have been pushed over by the coal miners in South Wales long enough. They think that they're so much better than you because they're closer to the whale fat ports and therefore can get a better price on whale fat. Well, I'm here to tell you that if I'm elected, I'm going to make sure that there is a minimum whale fat guarantee. But you know what you learned reading about Labor history? They were making the same arguments back then as well. Except instead of in Sky News, I'd imagine it would be in the National Art Gallery because the screen's hanging up. But they'd just be sitting there with more jowls, and I must say, bring back the jowl, saying, well, it's absolutely preposterous to suggest that the coal miners want light. I mean, if they wanted light, they do get a pittance a week, and therefore they could just forego food for 2 of their children. They have 6, and then they could have their whale fat. Just the fact that these three always say, Labor has no idea what it's like being a coal miner, with a bunch of their senators that used to be coal miners. Fucking latte sippers. Look at those two guys. There's a reason their hands aren't in shot. They're holding lattes! Ugh, I'm so angry. Well, not really. I could watch this all day and do in my spare time anyway. So make sure that you like this video so that I can combine my 2 loves in life, watching Sky News and AdRev. And make sure that you subscribe as well if you want to see more of these videos, because I certainly like doing them a lot.
Please share and comment below. Comment.